Narendra, can we start the webinar?
Yes, sir. I will start the now start the webinar, sir.
Sure.
Hello, Mandar. We're going live.
Yes. Narendra, can we start the webinar?
Yes, sir. I start the webinar, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. In today's Alumni Speak Success Stories webinar, we will be in conversation with the alumni of the Strategic Formulation and Execution program. The Strategy Formulation Execution program offers comprehensive practical solutions, tools, and proven frameworks to help you craft and execute a winning strategy. The program comprehensively covers shifts in resources, structures, processes, and systems that overcome common challenges of strategy crafting, and implementation to meet your organization's strategic goals. Consider this statistic. A staggering 44% of strategic initiatives fall short, translating to a wasteful expenditure of $109 million for every billion invested, according to the Project Management Institute. Strategy formulation and execution is not merely theoretical, but a pragmatic program equipping participants with practical solutions, tools, and established frameworks for crafting and executing successful strategies. The program helps you gain comprehensive understanding of crucial elements in formulating and executing strategies. Explore the synergy between your company's competitive and corporate strategies. Differentiate between short-term tactics and long-term strategies with sustainable competitive advantage. Acquire the ability to discern between good and bad strategies. Identify, assess, capitalize on industry opportunities while safeguarding against potential threats, positioning your firm for strategic advantage. Now, moving on to the panelists of our session, first I would like to welcome Bhavik Motiwala. Bhavik is a seasoned digital product manager who brings a wealth of experience from prestigious corporations such as ICICI Prudential, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Z Enterprises, and Piramal Group. Currently, he leads the special projects team at Z, operating from the chairman's office, focusing on gamification within Z5. His expertise spans M&A strategy, product management, and digital transformation. Known for navigating complex landscapes, he is always eager to delve into new experiences, contributing his skills and insights to the dynamic and ever-evolving realms of technology. Welcome to the session, Bhavik. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mandar. Looking forward for a beautiful discussion.
Thanks. Likewise. Now I would like to welcome Sukesh Kumar. Sukesh Kumar, Senior Account Director at EXPD, is vividly known for his marquee skills and managing and servicing clients in an utterly professional manner. He has an experience of around 10 years working on digital media mandates for clients across sectors like G20, SIAM, Lockheed Martin, Niti Aayog, Tata Trust, SpiceJet, and AHF India. He is well known for adding immense value through his quick thinking and upbeat approach to any task. He was also awarded the prestigious PR Movement 30 Under 30 Award in 2018, which essentially is given to professionals under the age of 30 who have contributed in their own significant ways to the industry at large. Outside of work, Sukesh is tech and gaming enthusiast and relates that passion with his work as well. His eagerness to learn and unlearn has helped him achieve major successes in the form of various campaigns, such as hashtag Free Condom Store for AHF India and hashtag Nai Niti, Nai Disha, Naya Bharat for the government think tank Niti Aayog, along with coming up with an elaborate launch strategy for the School Education Quality Index. Welcome, Sukesh, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mandar. I'm really glad to be here.
Yes. So let's get started. Let's start with Bhavik. To set the stage on the session today, right? Let's explore the overarching theme of strategy. So, from your experiences, Bhavik, what are some of the common misconceptions and oversights you have observed when it comes to both strategy formulation as well as execution?
Right. So, in my opinion, I think, strategy is a very loosely used term. Moreover, 90% of the time when people are bringing in strategy, technically they mean tactics. So essentially, strategy formulation is not similar to technical or tactical decision making. To give you a context, if a company wants to grow revenue or start an alternate source of revenue, that becomes a strategic decisions. However, launching a new product or implementing a new pricing decision or bringing in new marketing strategies, that becomes tactical decisions. So one very loosely used strategy term may be a tactical decision by a company, and that is something we need to take care of.
Sure. Uh, Sukesh, how do you look at this? I mean, how do you see strategy and formulation, and what are some of the common misconceptions and oversights that you have observed?
Being in the marketing field for almost a decade now, I think I've worked on a lot of new business pitches for brands. And in doing that, I think when it comes to formulation of a strategy, I always feel the first step towards it is putting a good research and an audit in place in order to understand who are you building the strategy really for. And that's where I feel a lot of times we fail to really understand the people or the audience that we're really catering to for building the strategy. I think a lot of biases kick in, our own biases. If I have to market Netflix to someone, I would think that only millennials and Gen Z would watch Netflix, and I'll go in with that mindset without even, I will cater the research or the audit in my direction because I have that bias. So how do we really, I think that's a big oversight that we usually have. That's the first step towards strategy for formulation, is to have a very open mind, a clear mind, having more people come in and give you advices, doing a very thorough research. I think if we seek to fail there, I think it really impacts the overall strategy.
Right. So, I mean, that's a perfect point, and kind of leads me to the next question of identifying gaps, right? In strategy, the gaps can be very elusive. Like, you could consider all dimensions of the strategy that you want to bring in, but there could still be gaps. And in your experience, Sukesh, what are some of the instances where identifying and addressing a minor gap in either formulation as well as execution has had impact on the end result or the overall success of the initiative of the strategy?
I'll cite a very small example here, and I think it was a very recent one. That's why I recall it. We work with a leader, and I can't name him, but we work with him, and we basically form his entire comms plan. In doing that, you would basically assume, and a lot of times what we do is, suppose we are handling his communication channels, and you have content replication that's happening across pages. If I have to put up a content on Instagram, I would assume the similar sort of content to also go on Facebook. And in doing that, I think we continue to do that, but I think in between somewhere we realize that the audience on Facebook is more catered towards consuming regional content, and we just experimented by doing a Hindi content on Facebook and a same video with an English version on Instagram, and it worked so well on Facebook, that a platform that we were struggling to really reach out to the right people and get the right messaging to them. I think we hit the nail over there when we realized that even a small tweak in terms of how we communicate, what language do we choose to communicate with on a specific platform, so the same messaging really impacts the entire bit of it. So I think that was a very small change, but a game changer in terms of the numbers we were able to achieve.
Right. We'll come back to that point of, that insight. It all boils down to the insight that you have, but we'll get to that point later on. But over to Bhavik now for his thoughts on this.
Yeah, so even I can relate since I come from product management background, wherein we try to build in products specifically from digital ecosystems point of view. Something which really comes onto my mind is this idea by NPCI, which was seamless payment integration. So to give you a context, for any business which is running online, getting payments in the form of payment gateway is something which is very, very important. What was happening is, as a part of app integrations, what the teams used to do is they used to integrate with payment gateways, maybe a Razorpay, maybe a Paytm, maybe a BillDesk, ICICIs, etc. But what used to happen is in this entire digital product, the customer experience was very good. But when they moved out and moved into the payment gateway ecosystem, suddenly the customer experience went bad, and there was a lot of drop-offs. So someone came up with something very interesting, wherein they thought that instead of throwing the user out of my ecosystem, which has an amazing customer experience, why not have a seamless payment integration within my app itself? So that's how it started off. And the beauty behind this idea was not NPCI. It was a junior engineer from RBI. So he thought of bringing in a small module wherein the entire payment experience can happen within the app of maybe a Book My Show, and they don't leave the app altogether. So a small tweak, a small chink in the armor which was present and which was leading to a lot of drop-offs, but now it has turned into something which has become a norm in the product management field. So yeah.
Right. Sure. So, I mean, often the cited challenge that is there is the gap between strategy, like, great, the strategy looks great on paper, on presentations, it looks great. But when it comes to implementing it on a day-to-day basis and kind of percolating that strategy downwards through the hierarchy of the organization, there is where usually the challenges creep in. And that's where most of the strategy initiatives fail as well. So, Bhavik, your thoughts on this point of how do we bridge that gap?
No, it's an absolutely bullseye question, and the reason behind that is what happens is the strategy is formed by maybe top executives, and the execution is usually taken place by lower management or maybe the employees. So somewhere the organizations need to understand the fact that the strategy formulation, though it happens, but it has to go down to tactical executions wherein metrics or maybe incentives or robust organizational structure helps. To put it into a context, an employee may not have a similar understanding of what the strategic goal behind that tactical activity is, right? So for them, it is more of a KPI fulfilling and getting and moving towards incentives. However, it becomes extremely important for the leader to ensure that all those tactical decisions made are somewhere falling into that organizational or strategic goal. So, clearly mapping between the objectives of an individual to the organizational objectives is something which helps a lot in such situations.
Sure. Sukesh?
No, I 100% agree with Bhavik, and I'll just add on to what he said. I mean, we as leaders, when we make these strategic plans, like, we have a very broader goal in mind. For example, I can right now sit here and say I want to reach 1 million subscribers on YouTube, right? Or maybe say 10K subscribers on YouTube. I think breaking it down into smaller achievements, charting a roadmap towards achieving that larger strategy is what our role should be. And that's where Bhavik also came in, that we need to break it down for a lot of people in our team and different verticals that we work with, that what is that they have to do. Individually, if I have to achieve 10,000 follower on YouTube, I will not just go blindly and start making videos and uploading on it. I'll probably see at how do I reach 100 subscribers first? What do I need to do? From 100 to 500, 500 to 1,000. I think charting that roadmap, and then you can see your vision or the strategy coming into play and how you're slowly achieving it. I think that plays a huge role. So having a high level strategic goal is good, but breaking it down into smaller chunks of roadmap, it really helps.
Right. So having a long-term vision of that strategy of how it's going to play out, plus the, individual KPIs or individual targets that each member of the team might have. So those are the ways to go about it. But one fundamental channel there is communication, right? So often communication can make or break things when it comes to translating that idea or communicating that idea to the entire organization. So, how have you, in your experience, Sukesh, navigated these challenges of communication, especially when it comes to strategy formulation and execution?
Yes.
And
So,
especially when you have to kind of deal with diverse stakeholders and get everyone on board with your decisions or your strategy ideas.
no, absolutely. And I mean, I come from a digital marketing background, right? So if I'm executing a campaign, I have to work with a set of social media specialists. I have to work with designers, with a set of video specialists, website specialists. So it's a lot of stakeholders involved in making a campaign really successful. And adding down to it, I think pandemic, I'm sort of person who really likes to sit down with people and have that conversation, because I always believe that's really helps the whole situation. But you would also agree that pandemic sort of put us in a virtual space where we became a sort of we had to virtually interact with people. That also sort of initially enhanced the communication gap between us. But I have always believed that, bringing everyone together and working collaboratively, it really helps. Everyone in the team who are working in different sets of different aspects of the project need to sit down together and understand the larger aspect of the goal, and having that clear communication with them, giving them regular updates, resolving conflicts is something that I really believe in, that you need to sit down. If there's any conflict, I think we tend to avoid in order, if it's not jeopardizing the larger goal, but it's very important. Constant check at intervals to monitor the progress. I think when you're working with a lot of people, bringing them all together and seeing where we have reached at certain intervals, that also plays a huge role.
Sure. Bhavik?
Yeah, so I would particularly like to quote one very interesting model which I had learned back in ISB. So specifically while dealing with stakeholders, right? The prof had taught us how to develop a stakeholder analysis map. So basically what that map usually does is we tend to identify the stakeholders who are going to create a lot of impact for that particular feature, whose decision, whose onboarding, or whose yes or no is going to be extremely important. Those form the red ones. The ones whose decision are important but not useful as of now, they form the yellow ones. And the ones who are either onboarded with us or who need little convincing, they form the green belt. So it's particularly a visualization of what are you planning to, how are you planning to explain to your stakeholders the requirement. But drawing it in an arbitrary, proper diagrammatic form helps you understand that, okay, these are the stakeholders who need more understanding, and these are the stakeholders who need less ones. So after learning that from ISB, I had actually implemented it, and I've been using it since quite some time now, and it has helped me a lot. So that way, we tend to break down the discussions in more gripping way, and we tackle one stakeholder at a time.
Sure. So I have a follow-up to this communication. So data is again an important ammunition for executives to kind of put forward their strategy, put forward their ideas or insights. Can you your thoughts on this, Bhavik, as to how data becomes important in your communication? If you have a conclusive evidence or a like spot on forecasting of something, and you have this data to back you up, how does that kind of play out? Any thoughts on that?
I agree that data becomes a perfect backup or a go-to option for us whenever we are taking very objective decisions. However, with my limited experience, I have realized that sometimes when we are working in an organization, we are all dealing with humans. So despite of a lot of data to back you up on some facts, somehow we have to deal with we have to take the entire organization with us and move forward. So you have to be empathetic. You have to understand things from other person's point of view, despite of you having factual information and correct information. And you have to appeal to their social point of view, understand their social point of view, what is hampering them for not accepting that factual information, along with stating your information on facts. Things cannot always be objective when it comes to dealing with stakeholders. There is a subjectivity which is always involved, despite of data being a good backup for us.
Sure. Sukesh?
In my profession, we consider data to be the king. I mean, ultimately, data is everything for us, because it just helps us convince the other side really easy. When you have data backing your statistics or your strategy, it really helps. In I would just give a very small example. We were working on an airline brand, and we used to analyze their conversations on social media day in and day out, from 500 to 2,000 conversations. And when we had almost 2 years of data, through that data and through our tie-up with certain tools, we were able to figure out which flight in which sector were able to get the majority of the delays, that in this particular month this sector experiences the majority of delay, and that's purely a fact based on the data, and that too from social media conversations that we were tracking. So I think data is a very, very powerful tool, a very useful tool. And I think if used right, if we're able to churn out good amount of data, use it in the right way, I think it can yield great results.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as I was preparing for the session today, I had very cliched phrase. I thought I was not going to use it, but then probably this is the right time and I'm kind of using it. So you know that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So that's often quoted phrase. So how important leadership becomes in this case, where leader looks at a strategy in a very long term, in a visionary way. But when it comes to all the roadblocks or the obstacles that the leader hits, that becomes a challenge for the effective implementation of it. And how does that kind of become important? The role of a leader in kind of not just formulating it, but seeing every step of the way and navigating it. Sukesh.
Extremely important to understand. I think the key aspect is to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the people and the stakeholders, or the larger people you're working with in the space. And I'd love for Bhavik to add in here as well. But as leader, I think it's important to be in the shoes. You have to have that experience where other people in your team are working for. For example, if I'm sitting as a manager of a team, I'm sure I would have been executive, or have been in the shoes of the people who are working with. I know the experience that they had and what sort of guidance they need. So it's good when you're with that experience. I think you have a lot of confidence in the work that you do, and you can cite a lot of roadblocks way in advance. It's about our strategy, how to avoid them, how to take the team together.
I absolutely agree, Sugesh. In fact, adding on to that, there is one more thing which I think a leader's responsibility is. See, somewhere the leader has a vision of understanding the strategy more than the people below him, who are completely involved in day-to-day activities. So it is imperative for a leader to keep an idea whether the ship is sailing in the wrong direction or not. Somewhere the leader has to ensure that the new product or the new strategy, whatever is being developed, is not moving out of the core competency of the organization. So what do I really mean? Suppose, for example, I work with an entertainment company like Z. So in case if we are working on a new product development, if there is a new strategy or a new business model coming in, I, as a leader, should ensure that my core competencies are XYZ. I should ensure that my new product or new business model is not uh, completely out, and it is in line with what my company's core competencies are. So that is something which a leader should keep an eye on. Along with that, they need to ensure that, just like Sukesh mentioned, that they need to be somebody who's been there, done that, so that in case if the team meanders off in the wrong direction, they are always there to guide them out.
Sure. You brought a really important point here, Bhavik, about there's again a saying, right? Don't fix what's not broken. So if a company or an organization has a core competency, and there's the pressure of diversifying, or there's a pressure of innovating in not in a competitive, different competitive space, and so probably that's one way to look at it as well, right? Sometimes it's not about innovating, it's just sticking to your guns and moving full force forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
Only then you will get a competitive advantage. If you don't play by your core competencies, it is very difficult to get a competitive advantage in the market.
Right. And often through, moving on. So often through the process of strategy formulation, there could be mistakes. There could be somewhere that, one of the steps might go wrong, or probably the direction was not right. So how does, how does one recuperate from that and go back to the drawing board and, chart a new path? How do you look at that, Bhavik?
The first and foremost is accepting it. That is very, very important. Whenever we have made a mistake, we have to understand what went wrong, and more importantly, we have to accept it. something very particularly which I have experienced is that once you move up the hierarchy, when you start formulating strategies, you cannot go back into executing them. You cannot micromanage. It is not possible for an organization to just function with one resource, right? You cannot do everything. So you have to give the onus and you have to transfer the ownership to the management or to the employees, and trust that they will be executing it in the best way possible. That is one mistake which I think a leader should completely, you know, hold themselves off. I'm sure Shukesh can add something more.
No, 100% agree with that, Bhavik. And I think it's also it's one thing to accept the mistake, and a lot of times I also feel we have to realize there has been a mistake. For example, when we were working with G20, when we had just started working with G20, when India got the presidency, I'm sure everyone here knows how vibrant the marketing was in terms of the visibility of G20 outside in every streets, in every mall, in every road, everywhere you used to see the logo. So we sort of people assume that G20 is something that people would know, right? And we were talking about all the nitty-gritties of the meetings that are going to happen. India is holding the presidency. Um, Later, a month down the line, we realized everyone knows how G20, what G20 looks like, but nobody knows what it really stands for. I mean, you just know the logo. And it's probably not for the larger audience to know what G20 is, because it's high-level conversations that really happen between certain delegates and the ministers, right? So when we went back on the drawing board and we thought, what should we do in the digital space, in the social media space, to really make it like the PM called it a Jan Andolan, where every people participate. We played on very core pillars in terms of, how do we market India as a country where this summit is happening, right? How do we promote tourism through G20? How do we talk about people's participation in terms of how other countries are also viewing it, right? So how do we promote tourism? How do we promote our culture? How do we promote the innovations in India in terms of UPI? The entire digital ecosystem that we have built, the Aadhaar system, the Digi Yatra system. So I think we played on those perks, and when we started talking in those terms, I think people understood a lot better. And I think we witnessed a remarkable growth in terms of engagement that we witnessed. So it's always good to analyze that. Yes, there might be a mistake. We might think in our heads that it's all good, but you see the mistake, you go back on the drawing board, and then you picture it all very differently.
Very well said, Sukesh. So I'm going back to the earlier question about, let's say that, I mean, the strategy is on paper now, and it's being implemented. But often the hierarchy is left playing catch up. Like there's suddenly a shift of thought. There's suddenly a shift of the momentum. So how does that agility? How does one bring about that agility in the reorganization of the strategy? Sukesh.
I think one of the factors, and I think when I'm really working, when you say about formulating a visionary strategy and when you're executing it, I think a aspect that I in my field I usually see is resistant to change. People don't want to change and experiment, and I think when I was at ISB, Professor Siddharth told us one thing that, I can teach you everything about marketing in a session, and if you go out and do the same, you're going to fail, and I can guarantee you that, because marketing is something that, I can only tell you the concepts, but you need to experiment with it. How to use it, where to use it, when to use it, it's all up to you. Unfortunately, I think, and everyone here would agree that we would have never thought of, our PM coming and making reels on certain concepts, and a lot of leaders coming and creating reels, Anand Mahindra coming and doing such cool tweets on Twitter. So I think it's about time. I think that's where I think I face a lot of challenge and resistance to change. In India as a country, I feel it always waits to see what other countries are doing, what models have worked in other countries, and then we sort of try and adopt it especially in terms of marketing. But I think that trend is shifting, and as leaders, I think it's very important to see how the vision to execution problem is addressed with this.
No. Bhavik?
Yes, well said, Sukesh. So one thing I completely believe is, see, the world is changing very fast. We live in a VUCA world, wherein constantly there are volatilities, there are new models, new business models coming up. You just cannot sit on the drawing board and we cannot just keep planning. there needs to be constant execution. Somewhere you make mistakes, you learn from them, you move on, you keep pivoting. Initially the term pivoting is accustomed to startups, but these days it is also deeply imbibed in bigger organizations as well, because we are facing threats not only from smaller companies but also from competitor companies across the world. So we always have to keep trying out new things. It's okay if we fail, we go back to drawing board, but we execute fast. We come up with the version 2, we come up with the version 3 faster. We cannot spend a lot of time on drawing board. We have to spend more time in the market. That way we are getting the pulse of the market, and we're not completely isolated in an ivory tower, not looking at what the market needs. So this is something which we really need to work on.
That's a great point, Bhavik. So coming to the program that we are discussing today, the strategy formulation and execution program. So Bhavik, what kind of motivated you to take part in this program? Can you give us some insights?
Yeah, sure. So I come from an engineering background and I've done my MBA. After that, I was working in product management field for about 7 years now. Somewhere I realized that gone are the days wherein you just used to get yourself educated, and once you move out of the college, you completely work in the corporate. This is a world wherein we have to completely keep ourselves updated with new things, new, just like I said before, right? The ecosystem is constantly changing. We live in a VUCA world. So keeping yourself on tap with new things happening, new ways of strategic formulations, and also me growing into the organization, climbing up the hierarchy, I found that there is a need for me to, go back to college, understand what new things are coming up in the market, and how can I get myself abreasted to these things. So that made me come back to ISB. And ISB being one of the most prestigious brands when it comes to executive education, that was my first go-to option.
Sure. Sukesh?
See, strategy, I believe, is at the core of everything we do, right? And having a clarity of thought in building a strategy is really important. I always believe that, since we start our journey, we start with execution. Like we are told what to do, and maybe with years we have that mindset of executing, but how do we really build up the mind of building strategy, looking at the larger picture, the larger goal? What processes are really involved in thinking in the right way? Because I think we tend to have a very execution based mindset and having that shift towards a strategy based mindset is really important. And I felt there's no better place to be than ISB, to really indulge myself in a program where I can have that clarity of thought. And it has helped me a lot, because now when I see the solutions, I can have a direct connect with the the initial objectives that I said and the strategy that I've built. I think that having that clarity of thought is where ISP really helped me, and this program, this is the core reason why I chose this program, was merely that.
Sukesh, can you kind of share some thoughts on which module or which particular aspect of the program or which session from the program kind of you found relevant and something that resonated with you?
I mean, I started my session with it, and that's where we're coming down to. It's the research bit. I think having that clarity. A lot of times when I used to work on certain campaigns or certain accounts, I always and now I see it, and I think I had a biased mindset. I was going in with the perception that if I'm doing this, then this has to be true. If I'm marketing to a chocolate company, I'll assume that it's for kids. But having that clarity of thought in terms of exploratory research, descriptive research, different sort of research that can be conducted to really have that, remove all the biases, have your insights up in front of you. How do you open your mindset to different people's opinion? I think that was one of the interesting bits. I really took that with me, and I've implemented that in my profession.
Sure. Bhavik?
One particular topic which stayed with me is business models. So I remember during our on-campus interaction with the professor, she had explained about network effects. So how the new business models, because of the digital ecosystem which are coming in. In fact, we are currently working on one of the product which works on network effects. So business models, how is digital ecosystem disrupting different traditional business models, is something which I carry with me till day. It is something which I really liked over there.
Sure. Just out of curiosity, I mean, you mentioned the disruption part, right? I just want to kind of, out of curiosity, want to ask you about the generative AI. How does that kind of, all of the strategy and all of that, how does that play into the current circumstances where generative AI is going to kind of capture pretty much the entire market, Bhavik?
Right. So, see, there is something called as Gartner's hype cycle. I'm sure you must be aware of it. Whenever a new technology comes in, since it has its newness, new factor, lot of there is a lot of buzz around it. However, what happens is, as and when the technology enters into an adoption phase, people find that there are obvious limitations of this technology. There are obvious plus points, minus point of the technology. Therefore, from a strategic point of view, strategy comes in wherein there is a good amount of early adoption which happens in these technologies, and we tend to make applicative use of these technologies onto our business challenges, right? So, of course, generative AI is here to stay, just like internet was here to stay, just like IoT was here to stay, and just like industrial revolution 4.0 is here to stay, right? But anytime a new technology comes in, strategic model changes, but business stays as usual. Somewhere down the line, humans find a way to turn money out of technology.
That's really a great point, Bhavik. So Sukesh, I am a marketer myself, so I am kind of curious in understanding the content industry that you're working in. How does kind of generative AI change the game in your particular, I mean, in our particular industry of where when a machine is going to create content and pretty much create captions for you, video subtitles for you, and stuff like that. How do you see the space evolving?
It's interesting for sure as a marketer. Um, but I also feel there's a lot of regulations that will come into play. I mean, as a marketer, you would also agree there was a lot of hype when NFTs came into play, right? And everyone was wanting to use the buzzwords. A lot of brand came forward with certain NFT, their own tokens. But see where it is right now. And I'm not saying AI is anywhere to go. It's just that it will shape up. And we as marketeers, if we are exploring it, a lot of brands are also trying to use it, but in the right way, because there is a lot of misuse that you would also witness when you talk about generative AI as well. As marketeers, it's very important to understand the entire space right now. I think as an industry, we're observing how this really shapes us, our market in the coming times. And it's interesting for sure. I use a lot of the tools myself right now, but not for brands. I don't think, and I am a strong believer that AI will be at its best of its capabilities and will only be an enabler. It cannot replace what we do as humans, what we create, because it's only using a data that already exists out of your creativity, right? And if you have to disrupt the market, probably right now, if I tell an AI, would you recommend me getting Ori as an influencer for a I don't know, for a brand? Probably not. I mean, having that sort of critical thinking, a disruptive thinking, I think it's AI is still yet to explore. I'm not saying it won't reach there, but it's just the beginning of something very different and very new.
Sure, sure. Thanks for sharing that, Bhavik and Sukesh. That was an off-the-cuff question, and appreciate you taking it up. So moving on, Sukesh, you spoke about it a little bit, but any specific examples of how you have applied, these concepts, these insights? You mentioned about how it helped you kind of clear the biases or kind of remove the inherent biases that you had about decisions that you made. But any specific examples, insights would help.
Um, yes. I mean, like I said, I work on a lot of new business pitches for brands, and strategy is at the core of everything we do. So uh, I I think recently when I was I always used to rely on statistical data a lot, but like Bhavik said, at times you need to also step out and talk to certain of your target audiences to really understand how situation is, because your statistical data might be only valid till a certain period of time, and how the world is changing quickly. I think I went out, I spoke to a lot of people, doing a one-to-one interaction, getting their surveys into place. I think built up a lot of surveys, And you know what I had imagined my plan to look like on day one, I think it turned out to be completely different once I had that, you know, the entire ecosystem in place. So very different. And I will always keep this mindset with me, and it's going to really help me.
Sure. Bhavik, you spoke about the stakeholder map, right? Any insights on that, or any other insights that you have kind of implemented in your day-to-day work emerging from the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, one was stakeholder map. Apart from that, strategy helps you understand that multiple tactical decisions are all directed to together make a strategy. So just like I said in the beginning, that I was always under the mindset that making a new product or developing a new marketing campaign or bringing about a new pricing decision are all strategies, but actually they are all directed to a fact that the company wants to make an alternate source of revenue. So strategy helps you understand what your broader goal is, which eventually breaks down into a lot of tactical decisions. These tactical decisions are extremely focused and metrics oriented, wherein it's either right or wrong, or you have either launched the product successfully or not launched the product successfully. However, one tweak or one error in tactical decision does not result in the end of strategy. Strategy takes a very wholesome view of the company, and it is a very long term view. This was something which I never knew about before I joined the course. So we have to be very patient when we are implementing strategy on an organization as compared to tactical decisions, which are fast and more feedback oriented. So this was one very important learning for me during this course.
So thanks for sharing, Bhavik and Sukesh. So I have one more final question, but before that, I request the audience, if you have any questions to Bhavik and Sukesh, feel free to use the Q&A box. We can take up some questions after this discussion. So one last question is, Bhavik, I mean, there would be some of us some of them in the audience who are kind of in a similar mind space of opting for the program or looking at the program closely. What would be your advice to them?
See, constant upskilling, there is no alternative to constant upskilling in the corporate world. Even if you're planning to do something of your own, if you're planning to go for entrepreneurship, even if you're planning for a corporate stint, you need to constantly upskill yourselves. And this is one of those courses which helps you get a broader perspective. It helps you step out of the entire picture and look at it from a 3,000 feet view. So I would always recommend that we should keep ourselves updated with new things and take a cursory glance of where is it that we are heading. So therefore, this is a very interesting course and we should give it a try.
Sure. Thanks, Bhavik. Sukesh?
No, 100% with Bhavik on this. I think my mantra has always been never stop learning. Regardless of where you are or how many years of experience you have, there's always something new to learn. And I think that's where the program with ISP, this program with ISP in particular, I think it really helps you think in a different direction. It'll give you a new perspective for sure as to how you approach certain problems or how you even devise certain solutions. So never stop learning has been my mantra, and that's what I'll tell. And I'll really request everyone out there to teach and practice.
Sure. Any questions to Bhavik and Sukesh from the audience? If not, I would like to play a small video. So basically what Bhavik and Sukesh talked about. It's a small video that I would like to play, wherein you get a picture of what it is that is being taught in the classroom. So just 2 minutes of your time.
Customer preferences are changing, markets are changing, digitization is happening, globalization is happening. So firms are also facing challenges, the challenges of climate change, catering to diversity and inclusion. This course is about these four critical elements. Strategy formulation, how do you develop strategy? Strategy execution, how do you efficiently execute strategy? Business models, how do you execute your strategy through efficient, robust business model? And finally, strategic innovation. How do you respond to the changes in the environment by innovating? all these four critical elements need to come together for you to win in the marketplace. These tools, techniques, and frameworks have been created through research. This will help them think about strategy in an integrative manner. We're going to focus on how do we differentiate between good strategy and bad strategies. What are the different components of a strategy? Many firms develop strategy that may help them gather short-term gains, but do not position them to have advantage over the long term. Strategy is all about positioning the firm to gain advantage over the medium to long term. It is useful to mid and senior level individuals and leaders in a company. It is useful for entrepreneurs. It is useful for consultants, for investment bankers, anyone who wants to go deeper and understand the nuts and bolts of executing and formulating strategy.
Yeah, so that was a small glimpse into the program. If we don't have any questions, thank you, Bhavik. Thank you so much for your sharing your thoughts and experiences of the program. Thank you again, Sukesh. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Okay, there seems to be a question in the meanwhile. Okay, no, that's not a question. So yeah, thanks again, Sukesh, Bhavik. Now I'll hand it over to Advait, who's the program advisor for strategy formulation and execution. If you have any he will give a small glimpse into the program as well. And if you have any queries related to to answer them. Over to you, Advait.
So much, Sukesh, for all your inputs. It was great listening to your experience about the program. So, talking about the strategy formulation and execution program, the next cohort for the program is scheduled for January 11th and 12th, and we will be conducting it out of the ISB Hyderabad campus. The two-day program has been designed to help executives like you and their organizations develop and implement a winning strategy that helps you choose where to play and positions your firm to gain competitive advantage in the wide marketplace. You will thoroughly understand the fundamentals of strategic thinking and strategic learning. You'll also be able to leverage right thinking frameworks and tools to tap into your organization's core competencies to create a sustainable and competitive advantage. Participants of this program will be armed with powerful frameworks to create alignment between critical tasks, organizational structure, talent, and culture. Since we'll be having it out of the ISB Hyderabad campus, we would, love to host all of you at the campus itself. Your stay would be on the campus, further giving you a chance to be a part of the entire ISB experience. The program's fee is priced at rupees 1,10,000. And for any queries and any questions, you can just reach out to us. I'll be dropping my contact details in the chat below. And any queries, any questions, you can reach out to me directly on my number, and we would be more than happy to help you out with the applications process. But just another thing that we also would like to let you know that this is one of the most followed programs that ISB has to offer. So if you wish to secure your seat for the program, do let us know at the earliest, and we'll be more than happy to help you out with the application process. I hope we've been we've given you a great experience with this event. And I'd like to thank Mr. Bhavik, Mr. Sukesh once again for your time and all your valuable insights. We really hope that all of the participants for this upcoming cohort would have a similar experience such as yours, and we are driven towards delivering that. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
so
Advait.
much. Thank you, Advait.
Advait.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mandar.
Advait.
Thank you, everyone.
With that, I can conclude the session. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for joining, and hope you all have a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you.